May 12th, 2025. A date that will be etched in hip-hop history. The day the courtroom doors opened and the world stepped into the shadows of one of the music industry's most powerful figures. Sean Diddy Combs stood trial in federal court, not for a chart-topping hit or a business deal gone awry, but for something far darker: sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation for prostitution in a criminal enterprise built on abuse and fear. Chaos reigned as crowds wrapped around the block. Journalists, spectators, and lawyers all desperate to grab a seat inside what felt more like a cinematic thriller than a courtroom. Elizabeth Milner compared it to the Hunger Games. Inside, it was standing room only. Diddy appeared calm, dressed in a gray sweater and slacks, his signature glasses perched on his nose, quietly reading from a Bible. But the serenity didn't match the storm that was coming. Once the judge called the courtroom to order, what unfolded was a chilling account of power, pain, and predation. Day one began with the final seating of the jury. 8 men, 4 women, and 6 alternates, a diverse cross-section of the public, about to hear claims of celebrities, drugs, escorts, and abuse. Immediately, defense attorneys challenged the prosecution's jury strikes, accusing them of unfairly dismissing 7 black jurors. The judge rejected that claim and the jury was set. Then came the opening statements. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson stepped forward, painting a horrifying picture. Diddy wasn't just a cultural icon. He was, prosecutors allege, a predator in plain sight for over 20 years. Johnson claimed he orchestrated a vast criminal conspiracy involving arson, drug trafficking, sex crimes, kidnapping, and coercion. At the center of it all was Cassie Ventura. The jury was told about a woman controlled, abused, and brutalized by the man she once called her partner. But it didn't stop there. Another woman, referred to only as Jane, would allegedly be pulled into the same web of manipulation, forced into sexual encounters to keep Diddy satisfied. Allegedly complicit were escorts, cash, drugs, and meticulously prepared women told to dress in lingerie, pink toenails, and white Tar Heels. Prosecutors say Cassie was both victim and planner, trapped in a system where non-compliance came with dire consequences. They claim Diddy controlled everything, breaking into apartments, threatening men Cassie dated, and even allegedly hunting her down with a gun and a group of armed men. The evidence? And then came the prosecution's star evidence. A video from the 5th of March 2006 at the Intercontinental Hotel. You've seen the footage, the brutal hallway assault that turned whispers into headlines. Prosecutors began their case by calling Officer Israel Flores, the former Assistant Director of Security, who was the first person to arrive on the scene. Flores described Diddy in a towel, a blank stare, a devilish look in his eyes, while Cassie was in a corner, her face a shattered flower on the floor. Flores said Diddy told Cassie she was leaving, and as she tried to escape, he blocked her path. The officer claimed Diddy later approached him with a thick stack of $100 bills, offering hush money, which he refused. But what happened next was even more chilling. The surveillance footage was gonna saved, not archived. Years later, the public would see their brutal attack thanks to a CNN leak. But the courtroom wasn't done yet. Witness number 2, Daniel Phillips, a performer and dancer, testified that in 2012 he was paid by Cassie to have sex with her while Diddy watched. His testimony stunned the room. The testimony. He described being contacted for a private booking. assuming it was a bachelorette party. Instead, he arrived at the Gramercy Park Hotel to find Cassie in lingerie, a red wig, sunglasses, and another man in disguise, referred to only as Baby. It wasn't until Phillips heard his voice that he realized it was Sean Combs. Candles lit the room, baby oil on the table, cash exchanged. Phillips recounted multiple sexual encounters in front of Combs, detailing how Diddy exerted control over every aspect. He described being instructed on how to touch Cassie, when to stop and when to continue, while Combs allegedly pleasured himself watching. At one point, Phillips said he was even asked to urinate on Cassie. Then came the fear. Phillips testified that Combs photographed his ID, and he feared he could be hunted down. He said he stopped working with them after hearing what he believed were slaps in the next room, claiming Cassie was being abused. As the testimony unfolded, Diddy sat quietly, often scribbling notes to his attorneys. His daughters exited the courtroom as Phillips detailed the graphic sex acts. The Diddy trial, a week of truth, power, and reckoning. In a trial that has shaken the music industry to its core, the courtroom drama surrounding Sean Diddy Combs has become more than just a legal battle, it's a reckoning. Over the past week, allegations of abuse, manipulation, and organized exploitation have taken center stage. What began as a celebrity lawsuit has morphed into a chilling examination of power and silence in the entertainment world. The defense made its strategy clear from the beginning: attack credibility. Brian, a key figure on Diddy's legal team, zeroed in on Officer Flores, highlighting discrepancies in his original incident report. There was no mention of a purple eye, no note about physical force, and a troubling lack of follow-up. Meanwhile, defense attorneys challenged witness Phillips's account, questioning whether his experiences were coerced or consensual. The goal? Blur the line between prostitution and entertainment, suggesting disturbing events may not always meet the legal definition of criminality. Day 2 belonged to Cassandra, Cassie Ventura. The pop singer and former protege of Diddy arrived not as a star, but as a survivor. A testimony detailed a relationship that began when she was just 19, a dynamic tainted by control, surveillance, and trauma. Her story peeled back the glitzy veneer of fame to reveal a decade-long descent into abuse. She alleged physical violence, emotional torment, and sexual coercion under the guise of mentorship and love. Cassie spoke about being more than a partner. She became a possession. The courtroom listened as she introduced freak-offs, disturbing events involving escorts, reportedly orchestrated and often recorded by Diddy. These encounters weren't spontaneous. They became a grim routine. Cassie described the toll: loss of identity, mental health deterioration, and a life ruled by fear. The most damning moments came with surveillance footages, specifically a 2006 video showing Diddy allegedly dragging Cassie down a hallway. She testified that he recorded intimate moments to use as blackmail, controlling every part of her life, from who she could speak to what she wore, to her career itself. The defense countered these claims by suggesting Cassie had access to the tapes, yet the power dynamics were undeniable. With charges ranging from racketeering to sex trafficking, Diddy faces life in prison. Yet, even a lesser conviction could be spun as a victory for his legal team-damaged reputation but empire intact. That's why the prosecution is determined to prove this wasn't an isolated relationship gone wrong, but a calculated pattern of abuse fitting the RICO framework. Cassie's cross-examination begins next. and the courtroom is bracing. Will the defense portray her as a vindictive ex, or tread carefully to avoid alienating a jury that has already seen too much? Either way, this case isn't just about one man, it's about what happens when unchecked power is finally held accountable. This has been a harrowing week inside the Southern District of New York, a week where the world stopped watching the mogul and started listening to the survivors.